Everyone, and welcome to the final week of our course, where we will be going over the material from Chapter 29, Income, Poverty, and Healthcare. I hope throughout our time together you have began to gain an appreciation of how microeconomic theory can approach problems from a strategic, logical, and model-based approach. Oftentimes, income, poverty, and healthcare are deeply passionate and politicized topics. However, if we approach them using microeconomic theory, we can often cool down some of that heat and help solve these problems from a logical viewpoint. With that said, let's jump right into the material from chapter 29. The first concept discussed in chapter 29 is this idea of income. And income is most commonly measured by mean or average income, median income, or the mode of income within a given economy. However, these three different measures have one huge problem, and that is it doesn't account for the distribution of wealth within our economy. Let me give you an example. Let's say 50% of the population in country A make an average annual income of $1 per year. The other 50% make an average annual income of $100,000 a year. There's a lot of income inequality within this economy. However, the average income is $50,000 a year. Let's compare country A to country B. In country B, 100% of the population makes $50,000 a year. If we looked at nothing but the measure of average or mean income, country A, country B would be identical at $50,000 a year. However, I think most of us would agree country B, where 0% of the population are living in poverty, is much better off than country A, where 50% of the population is living in poverty. To account for these differences, Chapter 29 will go over two different tools to measure income equality within the economy. The first is the Lorenz curve. And the Lorenz curve is simply a geometric distribution of wealth within the economy. It will generate a statement somewhat like this. The top 10% of the population controls 60% of the wealth. Another useful tool to compare country A to country B is the Gini coefficient. And the Gini coefficient will range from a range of 0, which represents complete equality within an economy, all the way out to 1, which represents complete inequality within an economy. When we're discussing income, there is often a lot of different endowments or variables that microeconomists will use to measure and explain income of an individual. These measures include age, productivity, talent, experience, training, and the education of an individual. Anything that is not explained by these different endowments or variables is classified as discrimination. And a really common topic and discussion of discrimination is the gender wage gap. The gender wage gap in Utah is amongst some of the worst in the nation, even accounting for all of these different endowments or variables like age, productivity, talent, education, and experience. Women will typically make 60 to 70% of their male counterparts. The second topic discussed in chapter 29 is this idea of poverty. And poverty, like income, can be measured in several different ways. It can be measured by a living wage, basic caloric intake, which is how the government measures poverty within our nation, or the percentage of the population that is currently on SNAP or food stamps. Healthcare within a different economy can also be measured in several different ways. Popular methods include the mortality rate, or the average death that occurs within a population, the infant death rate, or, becoming more and more popular, is the average amount of medical debt within a given economy. So, when should the government get involved in issues like income, poverty, and healthcare? Before we answer that question, I think there's three important things to consider. The first are, what incentives does the free market produce for unethical solutions of poverty, income, or healthcare? The second we should consider is, what kind of advantage do government leaders have that would make them more of an expert than the free market would to solve this problem? Keep in mind, most politicians, especially politicians in Utah, have a background in real estate or law, and not necessarily a background in economics or healthcare. And three, the final question we should always consider when looking at the question of if government should get involved in solving these problems is, what unintended consequences or negative externalities might government action or inaction in this problem create? I think by using a lot of these measures and these questions to logically solve the problems of income, poverty, and healthcare, we can really look at this from a logical viewpoint and take away that heat. With all that said, if you have any questions in regard to Chapter 29's homework, please reach out to me. I'd love to work through some of that. If not, we will talk next week about our final project and the final exam. We'll see you then. Thanks.